Congressman Dennis Kucinich.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with AFSCME again to once again say that my AFSCME voting record continues to be 100% lifetime voting record, voting and standing up for working men and women. So thank you. You know, it must be really tough for candidates for president to come before the American people and to claim that they were tricked, deceived, misled by George Bush. Well, here's one person who wasn't. Consequences when you're tricked, deceived, or misled by George Bush. And because this becomes serious. This becomes very serious because we have 3,100 of our brave men and women who have died in this war. Tens of thousands injured, some permanently. Over 650,000 innocent Iraqis have perished. Hundreds of billions of dollars, perhaps trillions, spent on this war. When someone wants to be president of the United States, they have to have the clarity of vision and the judgment and to be able to make the right decisions on life and death matters. I organized 125 Democrats, almost 60% of the Democratic caucus, against the war in Iraq. And I saw the same information all these other candidates saw. I studied the same reports that they studied. I came to a different conclusion because everything I saw was there was no proof that Iraq had anything to do with 9/11 or had weapons of mass destruction. People are looking for a president who has the ability to do the right thing when it matters the most. And I've demonstrated that. Thank you.
Exactly. So respond to Senator Biden's point, though. His question is, what next? And the concern is that a precipitous pullout will create chaos.
Well, you know, I had this plan, George, that I've been circulating for a few years now, and I've talked to members of Congress about it, and I have it in legislative form, and that is, we need to recognize that it's time to end the occupation. Congress must cut off the funds. The administration must be told no more money. There's money there to bring the troops home, for sure. But when you cut off the funds, you go to the world community and say, look, we know the occupation's been fueling the insurgency. We're going to close the bases, end the occupation, bring our troops home. And once you do that, the international community will be prepared to have a peacekeeping and security force move in. Now, I've talked to people at the UN, people who've worked at international security and peacekeeping missions, and military experts about this. And they agree. End the occupation, that's the first step. But it's not enough. You have to have another program in place that has to work parallel. And that is a program for reconciliation between the Shiites, the Kurds, and the Sunnis. The U.S. occupation, it will not permit that to happen. We have to have honest reconstruction. We have to get the Halliburtons and all these other contractors out of Iraq because they're cheating the Iraqi people and they're cheating the American taxpayers and give jobs to the Iraqi people so they can support their families. We have to also make sure that there's a program for reparations. Over 650,000 innocent civilians have died. We have a moral obligation. Our moral standing in the world is at risk here, and we have to have a plan that includes reparations. We have to do more than that. We have to stop trying to steal the oil that belongs to the people of Iraq. I mean, I think that, oh yes. I mean, I would just ask the audience, what was the biggest reason we went to Iraq? Oil! Thank you. And I would say that most American people are aware that if Iraq had not had oil, highly unlikely we would have gone in there. And the reason right now why privatization is on the table is because the Bush administration is doing everything it can to stay in Iraq so they can use their resources and influence to effect the privatization of oil. And it's wrong. We need to make sure the Iraqi people control their oil and stop any efforts to try to change their national laws. Now, the next point is that we have to stabilize Iraqi's food and energy prices. The Baker-Hamilton report called for those prices to start to rise. It's wrong. We need to make sure the Iraqi people are not going to continue to be desperate. We also have to stop any structural readjustment policies of the IMF or the World Bank that inevitably come in when a country needs loans to rebuild. We have to protect Iraq from that as well. And we have to have a reconciliation program between Iraqis and the American people, because we did real harm to the people there. They had no quarrel with us. That war is illegal. It continues to be illegal. Our occupation is illegal. My plan will work, and it's being circulated now, and it is the only peace plan that exists. I was right from the beginning on this, and if people want real leadership, I'm ready.
Let's talk about health care. There does seem to be a difference today between the candidates who have served in Washington and those who have served in state houses on the issue of whether or not it's going to take taxes, raising taxes to pay for universal health care. What do you think?
This health care debate is one of the biggest frauds that's been put on the American people, and I'm going to explain why. George, for 2 times in a row, the 2000 Democratic Platform Committee and the 2004 Democratic Platform Committee, I brought forth a proposal, Medicare for All. It's embodied in the Conyers-Kucinich bill. It provides for covering everyone. The big difference between what I've been talking about and all the other candidates are talking about is that my plan doesn't provide for a role for for-profit insurance companies, okay? Now, both times, this is one of those fault lines in the Democratic Party. Our party really isn't legit on the issue of health care, because whenever you talk to these candidates, there's always a role for the for-profit insurance companies. Do you know almost 31% of the spending that goes for health care goes for the for-profit system? Corporate profits, stock options, executive salaries, advertising, marketing, the cost of paperwork. The Center for Medicare Studies today released a report saying that by 2016, we'll be spending $4 trillion a year on health care in the United States. Now, if all that money went for care for people, we would have enough to cover everything. For dental care, mental health, vision care, long-term care, and prescription drugs. But because a good chunk of that money goes for the for-profit system, we have 46 million Americans without any health insurance whatsoever. We have people losing their homes, spending their life savings, giving up everything they own so somebody can get health care. My plan recognizes we're already paying for a Medicare for all, a universal plan, a single-payer plan. We're just not getting it. And so what I say is the American people can have it if they have a president who doesn't have strings attached, a president who can challenge the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies, and who can challenge his own political party. Because this is a fight inside the Democratic Party. You know, we're the party of the people. I believe that. That's why I'm a Democrat. But let me tell you, our party's been the party of the insurance people when it's come to health care, and that's going to change when I'm the nominee, because I'm going to campaign all over this country so that everyone's going to have health care.
Next question comes from Peggy Hanna of Sparks, Nevada. And she says the National Labor Relations Act passed in the 1930s grants uniform collective bargaining rights to all private sector employees, but does not cover public sector workers. What action would you take to ensure that all federal, state, and local government workers enjoy the same basic labor rights as private sector workers?
It's fundamental. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why you've seen union membership dropping in this country is because you haven't seen that kind of common application of labor law. We have to make sure that all these institutions that have been set up to protect the rights of working men and women actually have teeth. And you have to have an administration that's ready to make it happen. For example, we have an Environmental Protection Agency. Think about what kind of environmental protection we have. We have a Department of Labor. It's seldom that you see the kind of enforcement for workers or workers' rights. I'm now the chairman of Domestic Policy Subcommittee for the U.S. House. We're finally going to get into looking at what the NLRB does and how they really work consistently to undermine the rights of workers and unions to try to be heard and to be represented. We also have to look at OSHA enforcement like that, because there's a lot of unsafe workplaces where the people are not being held to account in law. So labor law and enforcement of workers' rights becomes important, but I want to take it one step further. Because let me tell you one of the things that's led to a destructive undermining of workers' rights in this country, and that is our trade agreements. If you go back to when NAFTA was passed, and GATT, and the creation of the World Trade Organization. They were written specifically so there wouldn't be any provisions for workers' rights. So, no protection for the right to organize, the right to strike, the right to collective bargaining. Those were all excluded from trade agreements. Now, why was that? Because corporations wanted to move the jobs out of this country and move it to places where they had cheap labor. They also were looking to move it to places where, if possible, it could have prison labor, slave labor, child labor. They didn't want environmental restrictions, clean air and clean water laws. So what happened is NAFTA and GATT opened up the door for that. And it really undermined workers everywhere. It just undermined people in this country, workers in this country, it undermined workers in other countries. Let me tell you what I intend to do about it. My first week in office, I will move to cancel NAFTA and our relationship with the WTO and go back to bilateral trade that will be conditioned on workers' rights, human rights, environmental quality principles. That's going to help us restore our trade balance, and it's going to help us restore the rights of workers. And nobody else can say that. No other candidate can say that. And I've seen the effect of these trade agreements on the people in my district and on the American people.
Time for a closing statement.
Thank you. So I'm going to need your help in answering this question. I just told you that I'm the candidate who can move this country from war to peace, from insurance run for-profit health care to people-oriented, not-for-profit health care. From trade that's run in the interest of global corporations to trade that has workers' rights, human rights, and environmental quality principles. From a condition where the government is being run as an engine to accelerate the wealth upwards to a condition where there's more equitable distribution and everybody has a chance to make a living. Now, I want you to tell me, why is it that I'm able to do this?
No strength.
What?
No strength.
I can't hear you.
No strength.
That's right. That's the answer. You need a president with no strings. A president with